Good morning. This is the weekly VOLTHA TST meeting, and thank you for joining us. And we have a few items on the agenda, quite a few items on the agenda today. If anybody would like to add anything or add any updates to the agenda before I get going, feel free to add them in because I'll mostly be doing a brain dump of some of the problems that came up last week and the state of the release and all that fun stuff. So if anybody wants to jump in before we get started on that, feel free. Okay, so for the first item, we have the ongoing announcement for the upcoming ONF Open Broadband meetup in Istanbul, Turkey. Let me see. So Denise has made a formal posting about it, and we're soliciting requests for papers or topics to talk at the discussion. I don't
And
know
we
if you.
invite folks, thank
Mhm.
you,
Yep.
Julie. We're inviting, we'd really like to get an idea as to how many folks might attend for planning purposes. So, we're hoping that this community is able to travel there and participate. This is an in-person event. We are not planning to have virtual aspects to it. So if you are able to attend, we'd love to have you there. Please, there's a link here to the RSVP. Just let us raise your hand and let us know that you do plan to attend. And as Joey says, the CFP is now open, and we have invited the VOLTHA TST to be the program committee to review the proposals. And they have participated in already providing us with some ideas on potential topics. We want to make this a very interactive sort of session for the community with these presentations. So, bring your ideas to present, and at the meeting itself, we want to facilitate some discussion and get feedback on them. So I hope you can participate with us.
Okay, good. Okay, so since there's there's no new items added, we can just dive into some of the fun stuff. So we did set up Jenkins View a little while ago, which were VIP jobs, and this was the important pipeline jobs we were trying to target for cleanup. And if anybody would like to poke around in here or try and poke at some of the failures, the only ones I can comment on right now are the BB sim tests. We do have quite a few failures in here, and I'll talk about those in a little bit. We have had a little bit of green show up in them, but still some more work is needed in there. And, some of the community pod jobs are running green. There's some instability in a few of them. Yeah, it's just all over the map. If anybody would like to have any specific jobs added on this list is manually maintained. We can add jobs or remove them as needed. If you'd like something added, feel free to add it or just let us know. Okay, so last week we're seeing quite a few failures manifest in the BB Sim sanity tests. Let's see. It was affecting both the periodic nightly jobs, if I could spell that right. Yeah, periodic. Nightly jobs, and it was also affecting community patches that were being submitted. The symptoms were horribly cryptic. Well, here I can show you what they look like. This link problems cleaned up are some of the failures that were encountered and the problems that were fixed. But the ways the problems were manifesting were within the pipelines, and this is the output literally that we were getting. Jenkins would log the sections of the pipelines that were running. So there was like a script stage. There's stages, stage, section, I think it's section, and then script where the code runs. So we would get a few highlighted tokens to say that it's processing this piece of the pipeline. literally nothing. The output would just stop. And then if you scroll down a little further in the logs, you'd start seeing skip due to earlier failures, but no real error messages that are blatant in the logs. And the only way to really tell what was going on is to read the pipeline source, match up the stage and the stages, and add debugging lines to try and figure out where it was failing. Um, there were some scripting problems. There's a whole bunch of things that came up. One of the ones that were really odd, so Jenkins, when it's running pipelines, is actually leveraging part of the Groovy language, which is built on top of Java. And Jenkins has a security manager built into it that will basically highlight statements in pipeline sources that it could pose security issues, and it usually flags them so somebody could go in and review them and approve the use of the tokens. And until that happens, it basically blocks any of the jobs from running. The strange part was when the security manager intervenes, you normally get log messages, have messages output that says it can't use blah, blah, blah because of security concerns, and talk to admins to be able to approve it. The log output was basically, there was nothing. There was nothing in the job logs. There was nothing in the Jenkins system logs. And the only way finally exposed it was adding print statements to the Groovy scripts that were having trouble. And I don't know if it was an optimization problem, but statements were moved around enough that the messages started being issued after quite a few changes. So that's where we ended up getting those fixed. But this is a failure mode to keep an eye out for, because it's kind of ugly, the fact that there's no error messages. And I know people have run into this before. It manifests way downstream from where the problem actually occurred. Usually at the end of the jobs, there are post tasks that run they're kind of like catch-alls and run for a pipeline job after, to do cleanup or logging or anything like that. The errors do manifest down there, but it's way downstream, and it's usually because XML files are missing or log files are missing. So if you see any of the like coverage reports failing, or in this case, there was a robot XML or a robot log failure reported, start looking back through the log, because there's very likely a failure earlier on in the job. But if anybody's interested, most of the problems that have been addressed have been documented here. And I guess, is there any questions or anything, any thoughts or anything before we move on? I know that's a lot to digest. If you want to read it and then have questions later on, feel free to ask.
Joey, is there any parallel stages defined in Jenkins scripts? I know this is very hard to debug, but when we use those parallel stages, it makes lots of troubles. And if you have one of those, then maybe we can get rid of.
We do have some parallel stages, but not a lot of them. Where you can find them, the token to look for is concurrent, and it'll say concurrent true or false. They're checked into the CI management repository, and it's just a handful of tests that are running that can run concurrently. So it's not like widespread across the builds or anything like that. Though we do have some concurrency, though at a different level. The pipelines are actually made of several different jobs. Like, one job might be to do license checking, another one might be to run unit tests, and another one would be to run sanity tests. Well, actually, that might fall under concurrency too. Some of the jobs will fork off those individual tasks, but that's not necessarily the tests within a suite running concurrently at the same time. But yeah, the token to look for, or the keyword to look for, is concurrent in the logs. Right now, there's at least one more silent failure that I'm aware of. Somebody brought this up. It's the same symptoms. This one's a little bit different though. It looks like these jobs are running all the stages in the pipeline, but between where the pipeline finishes and the post tasks that are like the catch-all routines for job cleanup, when those actually fire, we're having a failure show up somewhere in the middle of that. I'm still adding debug statements in the scripts, but that is still a problem right now. And I can show you what the error looks like. So you get job output. Use the tab. But the error is kind of cryptic right now because it just says error while executing failure post condition, script abort, and it's really hard to match any of this up to actual source lines. Side note, the last two commands that run are pgrep looking for the kale process to kill off. This is a conditional that checks to see if there are any kale processes running. And if they are running, then we try and kill the kale command. Just an item of note, the count is 0, greater than 0, so this condition is false. So in this case, there are no kale processes to kill off. So killing kale is not the source for this error, but that's just FYI. And yes, these debugging these problems are tough, to put it mildly. So I've started another Confluence page. I'm trying to put some of the more community-facing problems in here so people can poke at them if they like to. You can also find them from Jira through Jira searches. I'm trying to label the non-community jobs with infra, so you can do a query for tickets that do not have the infra label. But just here are some examples of the Jira queries that you can run and how to do filtering on them. But this right now, these are some of the BBSIM related failures that were showing up that are being looked at. I'll talk about this too in a minute. Also, am starting to create the tags and branches for the beta branch. So those are kind of available right now. I just have a couple more repositories to create. And this looks like the wrong page, is it? Yeah, I know I'm jumping around. Like one ticket, the version of BBSIM in the chart file was really stale. I don't know if the chart was being maintained while BBSIM was being updated, but this should be 1.15.0. The current version chart YAML is 112, and the source code, the version file is up to 115. So we have a bit of a disconnect there. This is the job I just showed you that Mahir was working on. We had two failures initially. There were sanity test failures, plus there was a Helm lint failure. That's the one. Mahir was able to work through the BBSIM test failures, and that silent failure was showed up after for a recheck job. But that still needs to be looked into. We have Helm linting problems. I'll go into that in a bit too. Another silent failure. I just started populating this page with information if it seems like it's a little scattered right now, but we should have more concrete stuff to go after in a bit. If you'd like to research any of these VOLTHA tickets, feel free. There are boatload of patches in flight.
Joy, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So there are lots of problems, but which one do you think is the blocker one? For example, maybe we can disable the Helm lint processing, and then we can run the test job if that is one of the problems. So what do you think, which one is the most critical one? And maybe we can focus on that to solve that issue only.
The two problems, one would be the silent failure modes, because those are just affecting whatever jobs happen to trigger them. The BB-Sim test failures are probably the ones to target because we have a lot of failures around those. Let me see. Just try. I'm just trying to remember if there was one. I think I posted about this in the TST channel or the VOLTHA Dev channel. There was one failure that was showing up with BB-Sim that it could not find devices. Let's see if I can. Sorry, I know I'm jumping around on this. But the BB-Sim test failures, I think, are the ones to target, because we have some simulator failures I know that are going on. Plus, there's some problems in the pipelines that are running them. I think if we get those cleaned up, then we could see a little bit more green on the VIP jobs. At least it would be nice to get this whole bank of BB-Sim tests running cleanly. I'll tell you what, let me go in and get specifics around it, because I'm cycling between a bunch of different problems. I'll post them in channels so you guys can see what's happening.
Okay. That's better, yeah.
The Helm lint problem side, I'll jump ahead a little bit. Let's make sure there's nothing. Oh, two quick notes. We had a condition. So when you check in patches into Garrett, it triggers the commit hooks trigger a Jenkins job to run. There was actually a script in the VOLTHA system tests repository that was running that we had no lint targets in place for. So if you were working locally in your sandbox and ran make lint and everything ran cleanly, submitted your changes to push your patch to Garrett, Jenkins could still fail your job because it was running one extra script that wasn't in the lint targets. And it was the command helm repo.sh in the helm repo tools repository. I've got a patch in to add that to the make lint targets so you can also catch those problems. And there were some ambiguous errors around version strings in the script too. Those were fixed as well. Let me see. I apologize. I know I'm jumping around right now. Okay, so release branches are being created right now. VOLTHA system tests and VOLTHA Helm charts both have the branches and tags. Branch name is VOLTHA-212-beta. From this release branch, there's a tag pointing at the branch for 2.12.0-beta, and the git review file has been updated. So if you push changes on this branch, the merge will happen on that branch, not on master. Git review is updated. I've got to sort through some of the repositories because there's different requirements. Sometimes you create tags on like the Onos repositories. Both the system tests and Helm charts are the only ones that truly get a branch with the tag on it. But there'll be more of those coming. Strangely, I did get an error message when I tried to push the tag with a beta suffix. I think it's being detected as a dev branch, which you normally block, but it didn't seem to stop anything. The remote branch and the remote tags exist. So I don't know if there's a problem lurking there, but it seems to be okay right now. Sorry if anybody wants to interrupt, feel free. Let me see. So VOLTHA Helm charts, part of the linting problem. I've been going in and updating some of the version strings in the charts. And the interesting thing is if you start running make lint on the chart files, not only does it find or it checks the changes that were just made in the current edits, it's also finding problems off to the side in other files that the patch is not touching. Now, I know some of those are from repositories that VOLTHA system tests is dependent on, but we seem to have quite a few of those manifesting in there, and I'd kind of like to understand where those are coming from. Because if you go in and try to make a set of edits to update whatever you happen to be working on, there could be residual problems in the sandbox that you then have to deal with, and you really shouldn't have to, since you're not modifying those. But I've got to figure out where those are coming from. So just a couple of oddities for chart YAML. We seem to have a mix of different syntax in the file. I don't know if this is going to cause problems or not, but some of the version attributes are quoted, other ones are not. We have quite a mix of V12 version strings in the chart file now as well, 2.4, 2.3, 2.6. But that's probably not going to hurt anything. It's as long as the version strings are incremented, but we don't have consistent versioning across the charts right now. Okay, so sorry, I know that's a lot to digest. If you have any questions or thoughts about any of this, feel free to speak up. There's problems all over the map right now is the takeaway for this.
Hey Joey, Abhilash here. So
Hey.
we'll still go ahead with the merges for BBSIM, or we'll wait for these to sort it out. The rest. I tried to give +2 and try to merge, but I think so. I don't have permissions to merge without Jenkins giving +1.
I think that was there was a Jenkins failure. Sorry, I'm just trying to context switch that problem back in. Okay, so I think where it was left the other day, I did add some comments on that patch. There was a there was a BBSIM failure in the logs, which was actually a BBSIM failure. There was, shoot, I wish I had the URL up. So there was a section that highlights that a robot test is running, and then there's some output from the BBSIM test as it started. And it was either failure with an unknown device or there was something else going on. That failure I think needs to be worked on. But with that said, it might have been fixed already with the test that Mahir was running when he was doing a recheck on the job, because I know he did fix some of those problems.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you have the URL handy, could you send me that? I'll go dig up what I found, and we can ask Mahir if he's taking care of that problem, or actually just rerun the job would tell us.
Yeah, sure. I'll send it.
Yeah, the reason that job was not, I know you did add +2 on the job. Just FYI, the reason it did not merge was because there was still a Jenkins job failure on it. And one of two things needs to happen. The job failure needs to be removed, and the patch also needs to get a +1 verify. And you usually only get those when jobs run, though, if you have a big enough hammer, you can add it. But we really shouldn't do that if we can help it.
Yeah, right. No, actually, what we discussed in the previous meetings is like since we already know there is some problem with BBSIM pipelines, so we thought of we will override the Jenkins and add a +1 and merge this. There are 3 patches actually pending on BBSIM, which needs to go in.
Okay. What I would suggest, if you have the URLs, we can go over them. A lot of the BBSIM failures that were affecting the pipelines have been fixed. And I'm aware of the problems that are lingering right now. Plus Mahir, like I said, did work on some of the BBSIM failures and clean some of those up. We may be able to just rerun the job and it'll get the proper status.
Okay.
If if there is no BBSIM related failure in the job, if it truly is just a pipeline failure and you're being bitten by the silent failure modes, then yes, we could go in and put the +1 verify on it manually.
Okay, that's fine. Let me re-trigger the job and the pipeline. We'll see how it goes. I'll
Okay.
keep you posted on the
Okay.
Slack.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yep. And I have been trying to trigger everybody's jobs that may have been affected by this. It's possible I missed some of those. Yeah, the first thing to try is just rerun, recheck the job to see if they're running cleanly or not, and we can go from there. Let's see. Okay.
Hey, this is Timon.
Hey.
I guess I see Jan, you're on the call. I'd love Jan to hear from your perspective on sort of how the work that you're doing sort of overlaps with some of the things that Joey's talking about and sort of where you are, sort of just a status update from your perspective.
Yeah, sure. So I guess regarding the stuff that has been happening last week, I don't have much for that because I just came back from holiday today. Apart from that, I went through the logs for the VPN connection of the IPsec connectivity from the lab itself at the DT site, because that's the main focus of what I've been working on so far, I guess. It looks like the connectivity itself is pretty stable now. So I saw only a couple of restarts. So I did this workaround of restarting the IPsec connectivity, I guess. But it looks like the connectivity itself also is showing in this smoke ping and the other monitoring stuff that I added looks good. So it seems that that reconnecting, basically removing a bunch of the media converters in between and building a different network path from the gateway of the ONF towards the internet has stabilized it to a point where we should be able to use it now. I guess the next step here from our side is really trying to focus a bit on the specifically failing pipelines on the Berlin pods. So that's what Christina and Joaquin have been looking into. Over the last week, I've been started to syncing up with them. I guess one of the biggest problems from our side there is that we cannot, or at least Christina cannot trigger those pipelines because we can only do that if you log into Jenkins with an ONF account. Or if you commit something and then trigger a pipeline via the normal triggering process. But if the pipeline is full, for example, or another 4-hour pipeline is running, that might take a couple of hours until you can actually test your change. We're currently working around that part by manually running, not really jobs, but manually starting up pods in the Kubernetes clusters directly on the nodes to see if, for example, ONOS is configured correctly and all of those things, because I guess a lot of the issues there are just related to either network connections not being fully established or devices not being registered, like ONUs or OLTs. Not all of them show up, and then sometimes tests just fail because they couldn't find the proper OLTs or the proper ONUs. So I guess this is the current status where we are mostly working on. So mostly not so much focusing on the BBSIM part that Joey has been mostly talking about, but more the part of the hardware related jobs in the Berlin pods.
Yeah, good. Thank you for that. So I guess that's pretty consistent with, I've also coming back from a holiday and just yesterday. So, but that's consistent with everything that I'm kind of seeing as I'm coming back to speed on what's been going on. So the way you described it right now is that you have what sounds like a half reasonable workaround for a lack of the right privileges to be able to fire off jobs on your own.
Yeah.
So I guess, and you said yes. Okay. So I don't know how urgent it is to solve the access problem to get you more rights or address that.
It's not.
So Joey,
it's not urgent. We really can work around by mostly working directly on the hardware. It will look a bit weird in the Jenkins output because obviously Jenkins has no idea that we're fiddling under the hood. But as long as nobody is relying on those pipelines, and I guess since they're broken, nobody is, that should be fine. So I guess once we're at the point where at least these sanity tests, basically, this is still the state where we're working on, because the sanity tests, like the simple ping check after ONU should show up, are just not working for most of the parts. After this is working, I guess it would be good if we could have these additional privileges. But I think that Joey also offered to try to find a workaround at a later stage, and I think it's perfectly fine if we move that a bit. So it's not urgent to work on that. And I have access to that, so that's also fine. It's just like since we don't have Google ONF accounts and this single sign-in stuff for Christina and Jokin, it's a bit cumbersome to start the pipelines, but we don't need that for now. We can like work around that and then get back to that later.
Got it. So I just want you to know that we can get them accounts. I mean, that should not be a blocker. I don't want to be causing kind of any more complexity in the workflow or whatnot, right? So let's not make sure that's not an inconvenience in any way, right?
I'll talk to them, and then I can drop you an email and see. Like, I think they're fine now with the direct access, because this is, I mean, we need to work on the nodes either way, because this is mostly, I guess, a mixture of network configuration and physical networking, where stuff doesn't show up. And once we overcome this part, I guess I'll get back to you, probably with the request for creating accounts. But until then, I think it's fine as it is.
Okay. Good, thanks for that. And I'm glad to see that finally that VPN issue seems to have settled down. That has been nagging at us for quite some time.
Yeah, I hope so. So I was like kicking DT people quite a lot, but I think it's like it should be a lot more stable now. There's multiple safeguards in place. I think we still need to figure out a way to properly monitor it. I mean, right now I'm monitoring it because I basically look at it and I see if it's broken because my pipelines don't work anymore. But we should probably try to figure out a way to more constantly, like, it would be cooler if I could just get an email if the connectivity breaks and don't need to look at it every day, right? So that would be, but yeah, that's future work, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So good. So then I guess for the whole TST here, what is the thinking about the release timeline? Is that a useful question at this point in time? I mean, do all of these test failures have to be cleared to get to the point of the sort of beta release that I know the TST was talking about roughly a month ago?
So, Simon, at least in my opinion, I think we should have the beta tag already applied, and we could ask the consumers of Volta to try out things at their own environments, right, and see if things are fine or if they already see some problems. And the reasons for that are, as we discussed earlier, right? Because we do not have an ETA as to when we will solve all these problems. And I don't know for how long we should keep the consumers waiting, right? So what this could help us with is if there are actually problems in the Volta product code itself, right? Maybe someone who is trying it out could flag it, and we already get notified. And most of the problems that we are fixing as of today are all infrastructure related, right? Or the test tools itself related. So I don't think we have really found issues in the Volta product code base itself. So I think we still should try to do that. That's my opinion, and others can please chime in.
So that makes some sense. I mean, you are, a big part of the constituency that could do just as you described. Take Volta and put it through your own And are you doing that as of yet, or where is Radisys in this process?
So, Abhilash, you can correct me if I'm wrong there, but I think we are consuming the latest master, right? And we have been running with that.
Yes,
Yeah, and
the latest.
at least, yeah, and at least with the DT workflows, we are not seeing any problems, right? So that gives us a good amount of confidence that there are not, obviously not big issues in the Volta product code base. So if maybe Sarkant or Mahir could take that beta tag, right, and try it out, at least that will give us confidence that yes, nothing is broken on the Turk Telecom workflows as well. And in the meantime, yes, we keep fixing on this and we make the official release once we have fixed it.
One more thing to add here is our tests are run with VGC. So the ONOS part, we really haven't tested the beta ones.
So, well, so two questions then. So I'd like to hear, is there anybody from Netsia here that can speak to whether they're running master in their own test fixtures?
We still consume the 2.11, so we are not on the master.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot say about anything about the tests for the master, but maybe if we can find some internal resources, we are trying to find that. We can run the master test on our own infrastructure, but right now I cannot promise for that.
Okay, understood. But yeah, I think as Amit was saying, it sounds like that really would be good. But I guess it's also good news so far that the Volta master seems to be reasonably stable. So then the second question was that you are, Amit and Radisys, presumably running with the Go controller, not with the ONOS controller. And my question is, the Go controller is all checked in and part of the beta tag release. Is that correct? And is there any testing going on with the Go controller in the Jenkins pipeline?
I think so. There are active test suites. Test changes are there, but they haven't been merged yet to the Volta system tests. They're still open, and there is no pipeline as of now for the VGC, for the Volta Go controller. Yes, but for in the DT, this one, yeah, it's VGC. We have been running that for the DT workflow. I'm not sure if there is a tag, beta tag for VGC yet. Probably Joey would be able to answer that.
Not yet. I can add that today.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because we are at this, and Jan, this is good for you to know as well, is that the community's at this interesting point where it is pivoting towards a new replacement Go-based controller away from ONOS, and I hear from you that you're working on ONOS configuration, network connectivity issues, and whatnot. I believe, from memory, that the aspiration for this release is to support both controllers, and then effectively move towards deprecating the ONOS controller. So whether that changes priorities or whatnot at this phase, I don't know. It's really for the TST to say.
So I guess when I was talking about the ONOS part, this is partially also related to it being a bit unclear what exact ONOS should be in there, right? Like one of the first things when we started debugging a couple of issues in one pipeline with Atron was that they basically said that yeah, you should not use that version. That's way too old. I was like, okay, but which version should it be? And so I guess the one of the issues there is it's not necessarily properly configured in the Helm charts, but it's also unclear what the proper configuration would be. And I guess that would be exactly the same if we replace it with something else. It's not so much about the technology itself being broken, I guess, but more about what are the right technology pieces to put together. Because like one other thing with this same pipeline was that this is just not the right adapter basically being used. So you please go ahead and download another adapter from another repository and put it on the disk, because that's something that we maintain manually. And I'm not like trying to blame anybody here or to like rant about it. It's more like, I don't think the technology itself is so much the issue as more like it's very unclear which pieces are actually the right ones that fit into each other. So which adapter should I use with which ONOS version, and then with which configuration, and then how is this going to succeed in which pipeline? So this is more the part where it's pretty hard to figure out how to put those pieces together. And currently the only way is shouting in the Slack channel at people that might be working for the company and hoping that somebody responds, right?
Yeah, I understand. And I think that as attention is moved away from the, the ONOS controller in some ways, the attention to this level of detail, or making sure that the ONOS is the most recent version or is building properly and everything, has lagged somewhat. Okay, I get it. Well, these are the problems we face. I mean, it's the interesting challenge here with this is an open community-based call. We're trying to have an open community-based version that's doing testing and cutting the release, but then all the commercial companies have their own testing infrastructure and their own specific Helm charts and ways of assembling solutions. And so, I think that the TST here needs to help define what specific configurations are worthy of the time to test, what is going to bring value, to providing test coverage on Volta. And it's not a black and white question, right? And there are levels of gray in here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like part of that has been reflected in this very important, this VIP pipeline thingy, where we try to identify which are the pipelines that people actually care for, and which are the ones like that might still be there, but there is not necessarily anybody relying on them, and we can look at them later. So I guess the thing that Joe is just showing here. So these are the ones that we're currently looking into, and then basically trying to make those work with the help, obviously, of the community and whoever feels responsible for giving us the additional information.
Got it. And it looks like about half of these are Berlin related and half of them are BBSIM related, roughly. And so you're looking into all the ones that are Berlin related. Is that right?
Yeah, we're trying to focus on the ones that have this Berlin Community Pod in front. There is a bunch more of Berlin Community Pod too, but I guess the ones here on top, I guess the first 6 jobs here are the ones we're trying to figure out what makes them fail or why these sanity checks don't work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Thank you.
Tim, one question about the Atran OpenOLT adapter. So this is something very valuable for the ONF community, but as you know, that code is not open source. So for the further releases, who is going to maintain those test pipelines, Helm charts, etc.? So as we ONF will continue to work on this Atran tests, or Atran will continue? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have the answer if that question was directed to me. I think that the question really in many ways should be directed to those in the community who care, and presumably Adtran cares, and presumably anybody who's using or relying on Adtran hardware would care, right?
Yeah.
But I suppose what you're speaking to is that Adtran is kind of backing away from sort of active participation, or has redirected, their engineers towards other projects, right? So So putting it more in just kind of a status quo maintenance mode. And if they're not resourcing it, somebody has to resource it or it's going to atrophy and fail. That's the reality.
Yeah, at some point, we will not be able to, for the releases, we will not be able to, maybe cannot run the Atran OLT adapter and their Helm charts because there is no source that we can touch.
Right. I mean, in the past, they have just provided, closed source components, right? Or of that module.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, nobody else is going to be able to solve that problem. They're going to have to, if there are fixes required, they're going to have to provide those fixes, and the source code's not open. So, I think it's going to be up to them. If something's failing, report it to them. If they fix it, great. If they don't, their product's going to sort of fall out of the test cycle here or out of the certification, out of the lab. Right? So it's whether they invest enough or they don't invest enough to keep it going.
I see. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I guess the floor is open for more topics if we want to add to the OLT discussions and everything else. We may have timed this one pretty well. Well, if there are no other calls for any topics to go over or anything, we've got about 10 minutes left that we can give you back for your day. So last call, would anybody like to cover anything else? Okay.
Sounds like it's a no, Joey.
Yeah, okay.
Good seeing everybody.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Yeah.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.